We've talked before. What is this thing God's got about idols? Do you know that He doesn't like them? Have you figured that out? Have you read anything in the text that lets you know that maybe He's not really excited about idols? An idol is basically a projection of what you think the divine nature is. An image, an idea. And they thought the divine nature was like them. What does He look like? Well, He looks like us. How does He act? Acts like us. How does He react? Well, He reacts like I do. What motivates Him? Well, the same thing motivates me. Can you have an idol without making an actual statue? Yeah. Can you project your nature onto the nature of God? Oh, yes, you can, and oh, yes, you have. Remember chapter 2, okay? Let's go back. First verse. What? You? You? Me? Have you ever thought, you know what God ought to do? You're going to tell me you never thought that before? What God ought to do, or this is only fair, and you are going to tell God what's fair and what's right. You know what you've just done? You have projected your image, your thought processes, your knowledge, your experience on the divine Creator, and you have just made an idol. Why does God have a problem with that? Well, because it's hard to reveal His nature when you've already told Him what His nature is. It's the same way in your relationships. When someone thinks, oh, I know Steve. I know what he's going to say. I know exactly how he's going to act. Can I possibly know Steve that well? No, what I'm doing is projecting on Steve what I think. And my foolish heart and my futile thinking has got him figured out. You cannot figure anybody out. How do they reveal themselves to you if you've already got them figured out? You want a relationship with the Creator? You want to mess it up? You tell the Creator what He's like. You project your thoughts and your values and your ideas and your experience on the Creator, and you will not have a relationship. You'll have an idol. God told us something very important about Himself. He said, I'm holy. And we made that word into something, ooh, holy. No. Literally, He said, I'm different. I am not like you. I'm not. So when you think your first reaction is, this is what God ought to do, you know right away that you're wrong. That's what the word holy means, isn't it? When you think, this is what I think I should do, you better step back and say, whoa. His thoughts are not my thoughts. His ways are not my ways. As the heaven is higher than the earth, so His thoughts are above my thoughts. His ways are above my ways. I can't even fathom that. And to think that I can makes me futile. Makes my thinking futile and my foolish heart darkened. And I will exchange the glory of God for something that looks like me. You still living in chapter 1? Are you still there? Okay. So we're looking for the retribution, the wrath of God. And here it is. In verse, tiny numbers there, 24. Therefore, God gave them over. And that, my friends, is the wrath of God. The retribution of God. Those words right there, they're going to show up 3 times in this chapter. 3 times. God gave them over. Another way to think about it, maybe an easier way to think about it, is God let them go. He let them go. Remember when you were raising children, you get to the point, sometimes you just got to let them go, and then they proceed to fall down. Right? Here is the retribution of God. God let us go. We forgot the knowledge, we forgot that God is holy. We gave up the knowledge of God. We think that God's like us. God let us go, he says, to the sinful desires of their hearts, to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. Here's that spiral. We started thinking that God is like us, and all of a sudden, these physical pleasures become very, very important. Sexual impurity, the degrading of their bodies. Whatever God made it for, whatever the beauty that God put it in, we gave it more importance and we focus on it. And folks, if you don't think that's true, you haven't been to a movie in a long time. You haven't picked up a magazine. You haven't looked at any advertising. All of that tells us that this physical body is so important and the physical pleasure is so important. As a matter of fact, that's pretty much what we should spend our money on. That's pretty much what we should pursue. And that is a natural thought process when you lose the knowledge of God. He said, here's what happened. He speaks in hyperboles. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator who is forever praised. Amen. Worshipped. We come and we worship this morning, right? It's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement that God is God and we are not. That's what worship means. To bow down, to fall on your face. To humble yourself. They worship and serve created things rather than the Creator who is forever blessed. Amen. And when you get your thinking off like that, then created things and sexual pleasures and any kind of pleasures become so very important, and you basically worship them and you acknowledge that they are more important than you are. Here we are in this downhill spiral. We've given up the knowledge of God and we've started to pursue life as pleasure. And that pleasure has to do with our physical bodies and physical created things. It says here, because of this, God gave them over. There it is again. You start down that path, and here's where you end up. God gave them over to shameful lusts. This is what their life is about, lusting after things that are shameful. And then he speaks in hyperbole. Largest example, even their women exchanged natural relationships for unnatural ones. And in the same way, the men were abandoning their natural relationships with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed indecent acts with other men and received in themselves the penalty of their perversion, the due penalty for their perversion. Here's where that got us. We went from what was natural and created to